With it said that CM Punk could still be fired and more, this is Wrestling Hub. My name is John. You're watching the Wrestling Report for September 8th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Recalling her match for the Raw Women's title at WrestleMania 38, Becky Lynch told Out of Character that Belair retaining her title was a beautiful ending. I'm really happy with what we did because I do think that it was a beautiful end to the story. It began with a handshake at SummerSlam, it ended with a handshake at SummerSlam. It was a year of me being an a-hole and coming back around to being the man. I feel like we don't often do long-term storytelling like that, and more often when we do, it is by accident. But we had it in our minds that we wanted to push forward, especially that WrestleMania moment. Everything that happened afterwards wasn't ideal, but actually turned out to be ideal, so I'm real proud of that year. Speaking on his podcast, Freddie Prinze Jr. revealed that the post-match singing from Drew McIntyre and Tyson Fury was not supposed to air. The end of the match was weird because they forgot to say cut. I know this for a fact. I asked a couple of people, they left the feed running, and all of a sudden Drew McIntyre was feeling good. Tyson Fury came out to the ring and they sang Sweet Caroline after a loss. It was so weird. With Ryan satin on Out of Character, Seth Rollins touched on his feud with Cesaro, admitting it felt incomplete. I was still trying to gather what the character was going to be coming out of my return from. I got punted in the face at Survivor Series, left the Messiah character behind, came back as this visionary but wasn't really certain what it was going to look like. Got into the story with Cesaro. I was still piecing it together. I had ideas of what I thought it could be, but it didn't really take hold until the Edge story. The Edge story was so deep and had all these different emotions to play off of. The Cesaro story had so many legs and different directions we could have taken it, and one of my biggest regrets is I didn't press hard enough to do that. I feel that's an untapped story. If we ever cross paths again, there is such a great story we could get to. It went one way. It was fine and fun and produced a WrestleMania banger, but we had a lot more we could have done there. The Edge story sort of brought out the best. Edge and I are similar, on screen and backstage. We have similar mindsets, and because I was working with him, someone who was very trusted, I was allowed, my character had already planted seeds in the ground, I was allowed to be a little more off the rails. It just blossomed from there. Brad Shepard revealed on his Unleashed podcast that AEW star Thunder Rosa requested a release from the company recently but was not granted it. You've got the incident with Thunder Rosa and frankly the insults and attacks in the company burying her. Why would the company bury their top champions like they did with Thunder Rosa? She doesn't get time with Tony Schiavone to get her over. You've got Britt Baker and Tony Storm. You've got Tony Storm going out there in the media scrum joking about her allegedly being injured. And you've got Tony Khan smirking the entire time. So what's going on with Thunder Rosa? Because there's more than meets the eye here. Here's what I can tell you, is that Thunder Rosa requested her release after the Marina Shafir match. She didn't get that. She wanted time off, but since that time she has not requested her release again. She asked for her release because of the mismanagement and BS. That's a fact. Now, where is she? Have they worked things out? It doesn't seem like it. While there's been talk of releases with the previously mentioned Thunder Rosa as well as Malachi Black, it looks like one star had his contract extended as Chris Jericho revealed to Alex McCarthy when talking about Angela Parker and Matt Menard signing extensions that Jake Hager too. They all got contract extensions. I've told the story many times about how the Jericho Appreciation Society came to be. It was never planned. It was just something that happened in accordance to the circumstances that we were facing. I think the moment the five of us got together, it was a different vibe than the inner circle, but I knew those guys were really good. I do feel proud that they got contract extensions, raises, everything in between. They earned it. They earned it by showing what they can do. When asked about the restructuring of AEW and several being promoted, Jericho said, "I don't need a job title to help the company. I do it every day. Whenever I show up to TV, it's a constant working from 2 o'clock until the show is over, if I'm wrestling or not. That's the way it should be. There's not a lot of guys that have been doing this as long as I have. In our locker room, there's Sting, there's Dustin Rhodes, and then there's there's me. I'm one of the original AEW guys, probably was very integral in getting the company off the ground in a lot of ways. So I don't have a problem with giving advice and helping people. It's what I'm here for. It's part of my job. Like I said, there's nothing to be written or a business card, director, VVP, or whatever it is. Who cares? I'm Chris Jericho. That trumps all of that. With AEW President Tony Khan announcing that the AEW World title as well as the Trios titles were vacant and new champions would be crowned, Dave Meltzer noted why Khan did not go into detail on the situation between CM Punk and the Elite following their brawl post All Out. I think the reason he didn't mention any names, he didn't acknowledge it, it was very empty. It seemed, I think that people watching the show wanting to find out what happened were probably very disappointed, but from a legal standpoint, he said all he was going to say, and all he could say because the thing is still going on. Young Bucks and Omega's name or Punk's name were never mentioned. They never showed any clips when they talked about stripping the titles. They didn't mention who the champions were. With it said that during the previously mentioned backstage altercation that AEW producer and friend of Punk's, Ace Steel, bit Kenny Omega, Meltzer explained, the claim is that Ace Steel was struggling with Nick Jackson and Kenny Omega was trying to pull him off and Kenny was trying to crossface him, so he bit Kenny, pulled his hair and all that stuff. So that's the story. Fightful added that the Kenny Omega involvement was said to be him trying to remove Larry, CM Punk's dog, from the situation to help keep him safe because he was barking and going nuts. Their side of the story says that once he handed Larry off, he tried to get Ace Steel off Nick Jackson, and Ace Steel bit Omega and pulled his hair. It was previously said that CM Punk suffered an injury during his all-out match, which was thought to have happened during a moment on the top rope. In a positive note, Dave Meltzer stated on Wrestling Observer Radio, he may have already undergone surgery, but either way, he's undergoing surgery. It was not confirmed that it's a torn triceps, but it was confirmed it's a torn muscle in the arm. That's usually an 8-month recovery period, so he was going to get stripped of the title anyway. Fans also took note of the fact that Punk was removed from the AEW Dynamite intro video, as it remains to be seen if he makes a return or ends up getting fired. Speaking of injuries, it seems that Christian Cage is also expected to be out of action. As Meltzer said, his injury may be the exact same injury as Punk, believed to be torn triceps, so we're talking again like an 8-month-ish, 6 to 9 months of being out. When it comes to plans changing for Moxley and Jericho given the Punk brawl with the Elite, it was noted in the Observer that Moxley had an entire storyline that had nothing to do with the championship or anything like that. He was going to be off. He even mentioned on TV that he was going on a vacation. The storyline had to be thrown out because him and Jericho, who was also not booked on the show this week, they were both called and told the show that we had and the stars that we had 4 main stars who are not on the show this week and we need you back. There was a team meeting before the show and unity and everything like that. With MJF and Jon Moxley coming face to face on Dynamite, it seems the two are in line for a feud. As Meltzer said, yeah, I got the impression that Moxley wins the tournament on September 21st, and they go to Moxley and MJF in November for Full Gear. It is up to those two guys to deliver. They're in a good position where they have to come up with the right storyline. The show is riding on their back, most likely. In the end, it seems CM Punk might end up being let go, with it said in the Observer that Punk may still be gone. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I do know that a lot of people want him gone. If he stays, he has to have a completely different attitude, and I don't think that's possible. Reacting to the news surrounding the backstage brawl in AEW, Ric Flair compared CM Punk to Harley Race on his podcast, saying, "I've been watching it from afar and it's very entertaining. If it's entertainment the fans want, it's entertainment they're getting. Punk is giving them a lot of it. We just barely got to say hi in WWE. But Punk is creating excitement now. And if he's not afraid to say it, I like the way he said it. I'll walk down the hall and be ready." That's Harley Race talking right there. I don't know if he's that tough, but I love that. That's old time stuff right there. If you got a problem with me, you can find me right there in the building. It's got to be dividing the locker room. Former announcer for WWE Tony Chimel recently talked on the two-man Power Trip podcast about his time in the company, firstly discussing being fired after 38 years of service. I was shocked. I went through all sorts of different phases of getting let go. When the pandemic hit, I was willing to go and travel and do shows and do whatever and just continue to do my job. Obviously, they weren't running shows all over the country because of that, but they started running shows in Orlando, only 2 or 3 hours from where I live now and where I lived. I offered to go there and they were saying no, they didn't want me there and things like that. Finally, I got a call saying that I was furloughed, and I still offered to go back and work there and do what I was doing and all that, and then finally got a call from Kevin Dunn saying that I was being let go. I don't think he ever really liked me. I don't really have anything bad about him. I've gotten 2 calls from him in my 38 years there. One telling me I was furloughed, the other telling me I was fired. I don't hate anybody. I just don't think that he was, I don't know. I don't want to say he wasn't happy with me because all my bosses were and all my people that I worked with were. I always had good reviews and things like that. I just don't think he liked me for whatever reason. I don't know. With Queen Elizabeth II passing away, the UK is mourning as former WWE star Paige tweeted, "Rest in peace to our queen." And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.